Councillor Simons and Councillor Pierce are not going to be in attendance this evening.
And with that, I would extend condolences to Councillor Simons, who is unable to attend tonight, and wish her a speedy recovery from her recent surgery. In addition to that, I would like to express our best wishes and condolences to the families of the several citizens murdered and injured on Yonge Street in Toronto. Another terrible situation. With that, I'll move to approval of the agenda. There is an addendum. As you know, there have been some changes in the agenda that was circulated, and I would ask if any member has an item they wish to add to the agenda. Councillor Powell.
Number 12.
Number 12. Councillor Powell. Anyone else? Councillor Bauman.
Also
number 12. Councillor Bauman. Anyone else? I now require a motion approving the adoption of the agenda circulated, the amendments, and the 2 additions. Councillor Coleman, thank you. Councillor Gatward seconds. Discussion? Anyone? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest by members of council, if any, at this time. None. Thank you. We'll move on to delegations, petitions, presentations, etc., and call Fred Gladding, the chair of the County of Brant Public Library Board, to the stand. Welcome, and with him is...
Thank you, Your Worship.
Do you want to introduce your
Yes,
friend?
I will. That was
Please.
my first task.
Yes.
With me is Marilyn Sewell, a fellow board member on the County of Brant Public Library Board. Marilyn and I have been busy, along with the rest of the board, for the past week or so, doing our focus groups with our site selection subcommittee. And I thought I'd ask Marilyn to be with me just to do this task of inviting you to our annual meeting. It's the AGM of the County of Brant Public Library next month on May the 8th at the Burford branch this year. Starts at 7 p.m. It's a celebration of our library service, really. We'll be presenting our 2017 annual report. We're going to acknowledge some of our volunteers. And we have this year a special guest we've invited to come and make a bit of a presentation. His name is Andrew Porteous. He sits on the Niagara on the Lake Public Library Board. I heard Andrew a few years ago at the Ontario Library Association convention in Toronto. He and a colleague, a counselor from Niagara on the Lake, sort of presented the story of the building of a new library in the town of Niagara on the Lake. And they had some twists and turns, and they stepped in some holes, and it was quite a compelling story. As I look at the town of Niagara on the Lake and the town of Paris, I see some similarities. So Andrew's going to come and tell the story of the build of the library in Niagara on the Lake, and you may find that interesting. So there it is, May the 8th, Tuesday, 7 p.m. at the Burford branch of the County of Brant Public Library. Did I leave anything out, Marilyn? Any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions by members of council at this time? And thank you for attending, Marilyn. With that, thank you for your presentation. Next is Ann Geary regarding a very busy intersection in downtown Paris, namely Mechanic and Grand River Street, which I use frequently. Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening,
Pull that mic down just a bit.
Oh, all right.
That's it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Ann Geary, and I made a presentation to you at the last council meeting about the necessity of immediately putting in a three-way stop at the corner of Mechanic Street and Grand River Street North in downtown Paris. Since that meeting, when I was attending the Paris Master Plan meeting, I was told that the Public Works Committee had decided to not put in the three-way stop, but instead to ban all left turns from Mechanic Street onto Grand River Street North. My immediate response was total shock. Not only does this not address any of the safety issues, but it just makes everything worse for downtown Paris. It feels like all of the businesses are being shot in the back. It seems like the businesses and the Public Works Committee are at cross purposes. The businesses are trying their darndest to bring thousands of people to the town, but it seems that the council members are forcing them to leave. Or if any of these people manage to stay, council seems to be saying, you are totally at your own risk, whether or not you are going to be hit by a vehicle, and we are not going to protect you. Please don't pick the low-hanging fruit because it's the easiest to do. I beg you, please address the real safety issues here. I was also told at the master plan meeting that one of the reasons for the decision was there is not enough advance warning for people having to stop. Certain distances have to be met, and it will probably cause rear-end collisions. I agree. It's really dangerous there. Visibility is bad. But the thing is, stopping is already happening. With the crossover signals and with the northbound traffic on Grand River wanting to make left turns onto Mechanic, and there's no control. Paris downtown is basically a set of commercial retail buildings with parking lots. Paris has unusual topography, creating specific hazards. We have vehicles coming very quickly down the hill and around a blind corner. I'd like you to compare it, just thinking about Brantford Mall, the Walmart parking lot. Would you have cars speeding really quickly into that parking lot with people trying to park, pedestrians walking around, and have all this traffic just come speeding into it and arrive on top of it? I don't think anybody would, but that's what's happening in downtown Paris. When I was at the Paris Master Plan, I was a meeting, I was a little bit disappointed that the boundaries of the Paris Master Plan didn't include the intersection of Grand River South and Dumfries Street. I believe that that is the cause of why we have speeding traffic coming around the corner down into the next intersection. What you've got at the corner of Dumfries and Grand River South is, again, a blind intersection. So when you're coming on Dumfries, making the stop, and you want to make a left to go downtown, you've got traffic coming up, and it has two choices. The southbound traffic can either go straight ahead on Grand River South, or it can make the turn onto Dumfries. But you never know, and you kind of have to wait, and you have to figure out if they're going to put on their turn signals, and then you kind of have to jump into traffic and get across there really fast. So all of a sudden, you are forced to accelerate if you want to make a safe turn there when there's heavy traffic. So you accelerate, and then you're going down a hill, and there's additional acceleration. So all of a sudden, you're going down the Nith River Bridge, and you're going around that blind corner, and you're arriving on top of pedestrians and people parking, and you're also arriving on the back of people who are trying to make a left turn onto Mechanic that are stopped there because there's traffic coming southbound on Grand River. So you've already got stops happening there. You've got people crossing at the crossover, but you don't have any control of it. You just have, all there is right now is a simple white sign that says there's a crosswalk farther down, and I'm sure most people miss that because they've already accelerated, they've gunned their car, they're heading down, they're going fast, and they arrive on top of the situation. It's like arriving in Walmart parking lot. I'm sure that you're all probably familiar with the Ontario Traffic Manual, which guides communities how to deal with traffic safety. But let me just quote from Book 12 on page 67 and 68. On page 67, there are justifications for putting in a stop. There are 5 of them. And 1 is minimum vehicle volumes. 2 is delay to cross traffic. 3, collision experiences. 4, combination justification. 5, pedestrian volume. But what it also says on page 68 is underlying all of the justification for stop signs is the assumption that adequate visibility up and downstream is available from a stopped vehicle on the cross street. If visibility is inadequate for the safe and efficient operation of the intersection in its unsignalized form, and geometric or operational improvements cannot resolve the situation, experience and professional judgment may support signal installation even if justifications 1 to 5 are not met. Something that has kind of bothered me or made me question is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I had heard that there's going to be a 3-way stop put in at the police station corner and the Wincy Mill. Is that correct? I've heard that that's in the books or coming. Anyway, it makes me wonder how that can be justified with all of those 5 justifications and the fact that there is visibility at that corner. So if that can be put in and it can't be put in where there's no visibility or really inadequate visibility, it just makes me wonder, what's happening there. Another reason for the no 3-way stop that I was given was that building of a huge curbed area from the crossover up towards the Nith Bridge was not feasible, especially if it was going to be removed again when the master plan came into effect. I agree that it is a really bad idea. That's put all that infrastructure in and then taking it back out again, that's a bad idea. I've proposed another plan instead that minimizes that, and I would like you to take a look at, I think you all have handouts of a couple of pictures. The first one is the 3-way stop at Grand River Street and Mechanic modifications. If you could take a look at that. If you look in just a little bit below center to the right, there's kind of, I think you have colored versions, I have a black and white version, but in green. I'm proposing that you don't put in large curbing all the way from the other crossover all the way up and past, but just put in a very small one. Maybe put in some flared curbing and either put in cement with a slope for wheelchairs or even do it with asphalt. If it's going to be taken up again, then maybe something like asphalt might even work. But certainly not put in a huge thing there, but put in a small jut out, put in with a wheelchair ramp, and put in a stop sign with a solar-powered beacon there. You don't have to put in any other infrastructure, getting wiring there, put in a solar beacon. And make that into a crosswalk. Paint lines on the road, the double lines, put the solid line for stopping, and cross-hatch some of the other parking spaces. It would be, there's already cross-hatching there. You might lose possibly 2 parking spaces, but make that into a crosswalk. What it goes over to is the new...
One more minute, please.
Okay, I'll make it fast. Okay, so take a look at all of the pictures up there. I've put in warning signs. I've put in even buzz bars. You could put in buzz bars to keep people stopped at that intersection. So I guess I would just like to say that in the forward of the MTO, It also says the interpretations, recommendations, and guidelines in the Ontario Traffic Manual are intended to provide an understanding of traffic operations and how they cover a broad range of traffic situations encountered in practice. However, no manual can cover all contingencies or all cases encountered in the field. The traffic practitioner's fundamental responsibility is to exercise engineering judgment and experience on technical matters in the best interests of the public and workers. Guidelines are not provided in the OTM guidelines are provided in the OTM to assist in making those judgments, but they should not be used as a substitute for judgment. The corner of Mechanic and Grand River is a dangerous corner because of inadequate visibility. Please install a three-way stop now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation and the additional information that's noted. Okay. This is a matter that will be presented to council later in the session, a resolution regarding this matter, so it's timely. Thank you. Questions by members of council? Anyone have a question? If not, thank you for the presentation. We have the information. The next is Dr. Ella Haley plus 3 representatives from East Brant regarding East Brant issues, and there are a number of those. Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. It's just me tonight.
Yeah.
So. Councillors, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to raise 3 issues. That's about Middleport, Onondaga, and Kingsville. I sit on the BOO committee. It's the Brantford, Onondaga, Oakland Recreation Committee for the county. And so the BOO committee met with the Kingsville Community Centre Committee about a week or so ago. And so I wanted to raise questions about the need for the Kingsville Community Hall, the demonstrated need for that cost. But as I did my homework too, I wanted to ask about the resolution FD 1802, the recommendation to demolish the historic Onondaga Community Services Building. And just recently, I see Middleport people are having a town hall meeting the last Sunday of April. They're worried about the Middleport Church there. So I see what good work the county's doing in preserving the old town hall in Paris. And we basically, in our communities, you know that we've worked hard to preserve the Langford Schoolhouse, and we have a very supportive community there, and we're making it accessible. Your community centers are very important to you, and you know that I value them. But when I look at the Kingsville Community Center, I have some questions. We have until tomorrow, I believe, to back out of the purchase offer. The county does, to back out of the purchase offer for the Kingsville Community Center. So far, $1.4 million has been committed to the new hall. And when we met at that meeting, Michael Bradley explained that it's long-term debt. It will not cost taxpayers. But I believe in the end, all debt costs taxpayers. So I wanted to raise a question about that. Brian Coleman said that so far there's no donations. We could do fundraising, but I remember sitting here in council where I believe Brian Smith or one of the committee members spoke about the men's organization at the time when the committee was drafted, that the men's organization would help to fundraise. So I just wanted to remind council of that. Brian Conkright, who's on the BOO committee, the Brantford Onondaga Oakland Recreation Committee, he asked the committee, he asked Kingsville Community Centre Committee about the need and about the rentals that we're getting. And I also did some homework and went to the neighbors across the road from the centre, and they said basically the Kingsville Community Centre is not used very often at all. And if it is, it's used by the Orchard Park community in Brantford. So I'm just raising questions about the need and Brant County taxpayers paying for a new hall if we don't have the demonstrated need. Jim Barton on the committee said that we don't have a hall that's large enough for a wedding reception. And so I, again, am asking questions. You know, there's the Mount Pleasant Hall, there's the St. George Hall, there's the Paris Hall. The Langford Conservancy holds larger meetings sometimes, and we rent those halls. So I'm just wondering about, you know, can we move around to a bigger hall when we need that bigger hall, especially if the current hall is not being used very much. Brian Smith said that the hall would attract people. He argued that it would attract new business. How can you attract people who want to be here? It would attract quality people, people who deserve this. And so I just wondered, well, what are we? What do you mean by quality people? My concern is that, are we putting the cart before the horse? Are we building so that they will come? And isn't this what developers should be funding? Usually it goes into development charges to fund services like this. I also pointed out that the Greenbelt expansion, the provincial draft Greenbelt expansion study area basically comes all the way around the north of Brantford, the land that was annexed. It includes the Hopewell lands that were annexed, and it includes the lands on the east of the city in Brant County. So would we have the population and business growth that was projected if in fact the Greenbelt comes? Will that be protected farmland? Sandy, who's the chair of our committee, our recreation committee, Sandy Concrete, she asked if the Cainsville Community Center Committee had consulted with community members, and Brian said, once we get the land, we will. But again, it feels like the cart before the horse. Shouldn't the consultation be beforehand? And Sandy asked, why didn't you come to us, the recreation committee, and fill us in more and consult with us before you even made a purchase offer? Why didn't you talk to us? We know about recreation, we know about the services that are provided in that area. Michael Bradley explained, well, we couldn't do anything until we got a new site. Maybe it is the cart before the horse. And I would agree, I think it is the cart before the horse. Brian Coleman said it doesn't make a damn bit of difference if we go to the city for a hall or if they come to us to use the hall. But I would argue that I don't think we should be spending taxpayers' money to build a larger hall for Brantford people to come and use. I don't think we can afford that. Joan raised the question about, was there adequate community consultation before the county proceeded to purchase the property, and I would argue no. Okay, one here. So from doing that homework, I've raised those main points. I don't think that the committee has demonstrated a need. I don't think we need to put an extra burden on taxpayers for a center that already is not being used adequately. I like that we have the Cainsville Community Center, but I don't think it's used enough to demonstrate that we get rid of it and build a larger one. And so as I looked at the purchase offer, it was made in January, and basically we have till the 25th of April to back out of that. And then the council resolution at the time included demolishing the historic Onondaga Community Services Hall. So that raised a red flag for me because I do really believe in supporting heritage buildings. I think if you tear down the Onondaga Community Hall, it's a landmark. It's part of what Onondaga is. I think then you just create a bunch of houses, and so it's an old historic school. I think it's important that we save it. The Langford Conservancy formed and stepped up to save the Langford Schoolhouse, and so I'm just wondering if you would. This is my request. Would you give a group the chance to step up and say we'd like to save the Onondaga Town Hall? And then I believe the Middleport people, they are calling for a community town hall on the last Sunday of the month, but I believe in speaking to them that they would like to come to council later, so I'm not going to speak further on that point. So, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions? Councillor Carty?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just want to make one clarification to Dr. Haley and to make a point that the Middleport Church has nothing to do with the County Council, County of Brant. That is the Diocese of Huron.
I know that.
sit on the Bishop's Council.
Yeah.
They have to make the decision on what they're going to do with that property, not the County of Brant.
I agree, that's the first step, but I know they are planning on coming to the county as well, the local people, so I'm going to let them do that.
Well, it's totally up to the Diocese of Huron to decide what happens to that church, not this council.
Yeah, they realize that. They're going to the diocese, but I believe they're also coming to the council. So.
Any other member of council wish to speak? Councillor Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the delegation. This project was initiated by a number of residents coming to council over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Was the presentation was approximately around 150 some signatures put together for us, for the county, to look at a new hall. This was not initiated by the county. This was initiated by the residents. So I take some of your comments a little bit derogatory. You're way ahead of yourself. Purchasing land is an in-camera issue. That is why, and we explained it to you that night of the Gameville Committee meeting with your group committee, why did it take place? Because it's an in-camera, it's land acquisition, and that's what takes place, and that municipal act gives us that right. If you remember correctly, there was a motion passed that night, and it will be coming through this council tonight, that there will be community involvement once we got the land set aside for this. And that will show whether there are needs for this hall or not. And if the community don't show up, then we'll find out. And if the community is there, we'll know what the answer is. You also got to remember, this land purchase is also for a new fire hall in Gameville. It is not just for the community center. We need a new fire hall in Gameville, plus the new fire hall in Onondaga, plus one in Scotland. Now that community, that service office in Onondaga, that's an old school. And it was converted into a fire hall in 1958. Then it was converted into a council chambers and a service office in the late 70s. Now it's out of date because it doesn't meet our needs for handicap. It's got mold issues. It's got water issues. No running water half the time. It has a number of problems. If you look in the back room, this room here, you'll see about 3 or 4 firemen here from Onondaga that did come here a month ago and speak about a new need for a new hall in Onondaga.
Can you do it differently? Can you have both? Can you have it both ways?
It does not fit on that land. Thank you. Councillor Wheat.
Yes, I thank you, Mr. Mayor, to the speaker. You talked about the Onondaga Hall. We have an Onondaga Hall. The Onondaga Hall is there, and we're funding that Onondaga Hall.
This is a service office.
Thank you.
That's correct. If you let me finish.
Sure.
When we take that building down, the Heritage Committee, of which I'm part of, the entire Heritage Committee attended that site a week ago last Friday.
Right.
Not just the Heritage Committee, but 2 members of staff and Councillor Coleman. When that building comes down, we're taking parts out of that building. The big circle at the top has SS number 5, and the mayor was there also. That's coming out. There's pieces in that hall that are coming out and be preserved in the new build, and a new customer service office will be built there too. That fire hall was outdated when I was on the fire department, and that was 15 years ago. And we're finally getting around to building those boys a new fire hall.
Thank you. Any other
That building, parts of that building are being preserved. And you better get your facts straight before you take me on.
Any other member of council have a question? Question. Councillor Gatward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question was, and thank you for the presentation.
Yes.
You mentioned about north of Brantford and east Brant being protected, did I hear correctly, by the new Greenbelt legislation?
There's a draft Greenbelt expansion map that includes the north that was annexed, the northeast that was annexed, and it comes all the way around to just north of Colburn Street. That's a draft provincial map.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other member of council wish to speak? If not, thank you for your presentation.
May I ask you one question, Mayor? Could we rethink so that, and I think there's fire women as well, not just boys on the firefighters, I think there's men and women, but could we rethink the Onondaga Town Hall footprint? Can we have it both ways? Can you buy land adjacent so that the fire hall gets what they want, but you still preserve the heritage? That's a request.
Your question is noted and will be recorded and dealt with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not at this session. That one will be dealt with by a committee later. Thank you. Next is Dr. John McDonald, Primacare Community Family Health Team, Community Health Hub, and it says and/or Cindy Brant, so I don't know whether to call Cindy Brant or not. Well,
yes,
wording.
you may. You may call Cindy Brant.
Pardon?
I said, yes, you may call Cindy Brant.
No, so is it and Cindy Brant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome. Please proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor,
Good evening.
county councilors, and the many people attending. Cindy Brant is here, and she'll begin the presentation, and I'll follow up after her. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McDonald.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Eddy, council members, and community members. My name is Cindy Brant, as you now know, and I'm the Executive Director for Primacare Community Family Health Team. I attended the last council meeting in March and the CDC meeting 2 weeks ago, and as I was listening to the debates regarding the Community Hub and the Family Health Team, I realized that there may be a benefit in reviewing with you some facts and information around the Family Health Team and the Community Hub. The Family Health Team and proposed Community Hub are not connected to BCHS. The Family Health Team is funded by and reports to the Ministry of Health. BCHS is funded by and reports to the LHIN. The Family Health Team are tenants in their building and nothing more. BCHS has no interest in the Community Hub at this point in time other than it providing a new home for the Family Health Team. The Family Health Team and its affiliated physicians have been asked by BCHS to relocate their services out of the Willet. We have been provided with the final date of August 1st by which to move. The Family Health Team and affiliated physicians are currently seeking an interim space to relocate to and hope to be moved by August the 1st. That's 2018. We do not anticipate or expect that a community hub will be in place by August the 1st. We do anticipate that the community hub will require approximately 2 to 2.5 years to complete, during which time we will inhabit our interim space. The Family Health Team funding will provide leasehold improvements for the Family Health Team, however, will not fund improvement for the physicians. The physicians are required to fund any leasehold improvements regarding their interim space. The county will be seeking letters of intent from both the Family Health Team and the affiliated physicians demonstrating a commitment regarding their participation in the Community Hub. This will be one of the first orders of business for the Family Health Team Board. All Family Health Teams have just been handed a new mandate through their recently signed contract with the Ministry of Health. The biggest change is this. Where we were previously mandated to provide team-based care services and programs to all rostered patients of the affiliated physicians, we are now required to reach out into the community, provide team-based care, services, and programs to the community members, as well as patients of physicians who currently do not have access to team-based care. This is in addition to our patients that we currently serve. And how will we do this with our limited resources? How will we provide services to the community? We will do this through partnerships. Partnerships with other agencies, other healthcare providers, and other organizations whose aim is to keep the community healthy and well. And this is why the Community Hub is a perfect idea at this point in time. We can only create partnerships if we have adequate space to allow future partners to work in the same location, to bring a program or service to our community. These partnerships will take on many different forms, some in a big way, some in smaller ways, some permanent, some ad hoc. This is good for everyone and for the community. It is no longer just about patients of the physicians. Every year when I complete the annual operating plan for the Family Health Team, I am asked to provide the names of our community partners. Pardon me. Through my 11 years history of working with family health teams, there has been the expectation from the ministry that the community will support the family health team in some way. Our family health team sees the creation of a community health hub as a partnership opportunity for this community to show support for the local healthcare services, and in a big way. It is an opportunity to be a leader and to demonstrate what support can look like to other communities. Let the County of Brant's healthcare be the envy and the model for other communities. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Through Cindy, I realize there's different fundings, the LHIN's provincial, and you mentioned how you're expanding out to the community, not just the patients of the doctors.
Yes.
Have you ever considered making the Willett the health hub? It has a lot of good features there now, like doctor's offices, urgent care, x-ray, blood work, diabetes, and so forth. The ministry is at 32 beds. We have an ambulance bay. We have 2 long-term health facilities a block away and 1 seniors. So when you look at kind of the big picture, I know you'd have to go to, I guess it's Mrs. Abramson at the most anyway, to clarify what she's going to put in the Willett. But it seems like we have an excellent facility now. It's been added to and improved, and it could be in the future, and maybe a small addition would be sufficient to do the majority of the things that we would like to have there. And it would be great if the community, for once, had the biggest say as to what's happening to our health in our area.
Absolutely. It's a really good thought. And when I first received information from the Ministry of Health regarding the creation of community hubs, and it was all types of community hubs, not just healthcare, their purpose was in using up assets that were just sitting empty. And at that point in time, we thought the Willett could be perfect. The Willett, we knew that the efforts were to take urgent care out of the Willett, what was going to happen to it. And at that point in time, and we're going back about 3 or 4 years, the Willett did look like it would be the perfect vehicle. But things have since changed. When we first started talking about a community hub, the reason that we were doing that was to try and save urgent care so that we could have a home for urgent care. And so we were looking at a different space because the Willett was not available to us. And now with the new interim CEO and the supervisor, they have definite plans for the Willett. That was one of our thinking was, well, could we be a part of this? Could we add on? Could we go out into the parking lot? But it's not an option for us. And we don't have the ability to sway the Willet, the BCHS, as to how they use the facility. So we did consider it in the beginning, but it's no longer an option for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Cindy. Thank you for your presentation. I think you make your argument for the importance of the community health hub. I thought you did a good job.
Thank you.
But I was listening and I didn't hear it, and maybe you can explain to me why you feel that it needs to be a municipally built and owned facility versus, say, a private one.
Yes. So I have the experience of having worked for a family health team that had 2 sites, and both of those sites were owned by the municipality. And it worked beautifully. The municipality actually owned everything in that building as well, all the exam beds, everything but the doctor's own personal equipment. And it was a real benefit having the municipality own it because it was a turnkey operation. So where I worked, it was very rural on the northern Bruce Peninsula, and it was difficult to get physicians to come. And this is in the days when there was a real shortage of physicians. And I'll tell you that that was instrumental in us keeping physicians, keeping healthcare going, because they could come with their stethoscope. Now, on the North Bruce Peninsula, nobody wanted to move there for the rest of their life, but the new grads coming out of school certainly wanted to come and work up there, pay off their student debt. They could work hard, and they could do that within a few years. So we were never without physicians. We always had physicians coming, and I see that as a real asset for this community. A brand new facility is a real draw to new grads, and that's what I would be after, is new grads, somebody who would be with us over a lifetime like Dr. McDonald. It's a real draw, a turnkey operation. They don't have to buy in, they don't have to sell out. They can just come, set up shop, see patients. It makes it so much more streamlined, and we know that we want to attract new physicians in the short term, but we also know down the road we're going to be wanting more physicians to come due to the population growth. Did you have anything you want to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of things I wanted to ask. You mentioned that the family health team partners had to be provided each year to the ministry, but you didn't mention who they are. Who are the current partners that you have with your family health team?
Good question. We currently don't have any community partners that I identify as supporting the family health team. I'm looking forward to having a partner that we can put down in a big way as supporting the family health team, but currently we don't have anybody. I think up until recently, the last year and a half, 2 years, I think the family health team has remained relatively unknown to the community in the county of Brant. And I think the community hub has helped to develop our profile for people to understand that we're here, that we have needs. Where we might look for community partners is if we wanted to buy a certain piece of equipment, or we do have volunteers, which I do recognize, and they do come from the community, but that's a different type of support than what the ministry is looking for.
Thank you. And recently I heard that all the doctors may not have to move by August the 1st. Could you tell us how many doctors are there and how many doctors have to move out by August 1st?
What I know, I haven't heard officially how many doctors actually have to move out. I do know that initially they asked for all 4 doctors to move out. We've heard rumors that it may be just 2 doctors that have to move and not the 2 upstairs, but the problem with that is the rest of the family health team has to move, and the docs downstairs. And a lot of our activities, our services and whatnot that we provide to patients take place in the one area that they want us to move. So if the family health team and all their services move, along with the docs downstairs, that's going to leave 2 orphan physicians upstairs. So I don't know what their decision will be. I think they may want to come with the family health team as a whole, the Paris site, but we're waiting for confirmation on the status of the 2 that are upstairs.
Thank you.
Any other council questions? If not, thank you for your presentation. Dr. McDonald, are you on the air now?
Yeah, just for a couple minutes. Thank you very much. Just on the last question, I think it's a critical question. And because there's two issues, there's the hub, there's the interim. How do you get there? And we need somewhere for both places, you're quite correct. Well, the reason why we don't know is because we have not been assured that the people that would be allowed to stay would be allowed to stay until the hub is built. We haven't got that assurance just yet. We've asked, we're asking, and we're hoping it'll come. But, in fact, we still may be all having to move because we can't do this more than once. The interim solution will be an interesting event, and it'll be the experiment to actually develop those partnerships on the fly to get to the final stage in the hub. So it's like a promo, a little uncomfortable, a little bit difficult. Things are going to change. Nothing is going to be the same, which is why we support the hub. The support of the hub, of a council, a community, which is not just Paris. It is Harley, it is Scotland, it is Burford, it is St. George, it is Ayr. It is not just one location, because we're from that one location, we are servicing other communities. That 30-some-odd thousand people will now be having services, will be enabling services for those people. So that's the sentinel decision you're making tonight to help us begin that very important progress of transformation of the community that used to be dependent on a hospital system and the wavering of who decides what in that system, and getting it back home to where it should be, around this table, around the communities that you all serve, for the people. And physicians like communities. They like communities, like to feel the support of the community. And this is a huge step forward to stabilize the health human resources, the physician resources, the nurse practitioner resources, and the other ancillary health services for this community and the many communities that you serve around this table. And thank you very much for allowing this discussion and for making this an issue of such importance for you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment to Dr. McDonald. Please don't forget East Brant.
No, I'm sorry. I won't. I apologize.
Thank you.
There's a lot on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So basically what you're telling us is that all 4 doctors would be prepared to sign on to move to a new, whether it be a temporary location in the interim, before a new hub is built, whether it's a partnership with the private sector or whether it's a county build.
So I don't think I could go quite that far, Councillor Gatward, because we haven't had that conversation. What we have is a conversation, which I presented to the CDC, was that the 4 physicians that exist now would participate in a community-based hub, owned by the community in the current presentation form. We haven't gone farther than that. As you remember, some of the past experience has not been that positive, but this is a very positive proposal for the physicians. And by the time we get a hub, hopefully it will be more than 4 physicians, and with the 4 physicians will be added on. So I couldn't go that far, because what you see is not, what you see is what you know. What you don't see, you don't know yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of council? None. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next is item E, and it's Peter Vacano. Development of the community health office. Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just push down to go forward. Push down.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, county councilors. My name is Peter Vacano. I operate a local development company known as Vacano Developments Limited. We have been involved in the construction and development business for 43 years in Brantford and Brant County. We have constructed and or developed 6 medical centers and/or clinics in the area and have extensive experience in the planning and construction of medical centers. I am here tonight to talk about the planned community health hub the county has been contemplating to develop and operate. First of all, I commend the county in taking the initiative in reacting to the community's needs and accepting the leadership role to provide a solution for the community. I have read the Corporate Development Committee report presented to Council on April the 5th, 2018. We are now aware of the business plan and details of the planned community health club or health hub the county is considering. Vicano Developments Limited initially learned of the possible closing of the Willett Hospital by reading about it in the local newspaper about 2 years ago. Since that time, we have envisioned different concepts, and we have had discussions with various people and groups regarding creating a community health hub. Vicano Developments has assembled 2 distinctively different parcels of land to be in a position to respond to a possible request for proposals when and if it would be announced. One of the 2 sites we have been planning is an 11.5-acre parcel in the southwest of Paris on West Acres Road, zoned and ready to go. We have been meeting with county staff for the past year regarding our submission. In fact, we are submitting a complete formal site plan approval application shortly. On this site, as you see on the screen, one option has been to erect a community health hub in a 2-phase development containing all the planned medical hub uses plus many more services such as dentist, daycare, early childhood education, seniors care, and other community-related uses as outlined in the 2015 provincial report. Community Hubs in Ontario, a strategic framework and action plan. These additional non-medical uses create a broader framework for a more complete and community-minded hub facility in a rapidly expanding and easily accessible area of Brant County. Vicano Developments has also assembled yet another 6-acre parcel in North Paris on Grand River Street North at Scott Ave for the purpose of also responding to a possible request for proposals for a community health hub. In addition, we planned for a seniors retirement residence on the same site. Can you press the next one? In conclusion, should County Council decide to seek alternate solutions to the planned community health hub location and business plan, we are ready and able to respond with a community-minded partnership proposal. We would be pleased to answer any detailed questions and further discussions.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions for the next council? Councilor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. Through you to Mr. Vicano. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your presentation. I'm trying to identify the advantages of a municipal build versus private developer build, and maybe I'm misquoting Ms. Brant, but I thought she said it was a turnkey, the one she's been working on. It's a new facility, obviously. I'm going to ask, are these things Vicano can deliver in a timely fashion?
Absolutely. That's exactly the way we have delivered all of the medical centers that we have constructed and developed. In fact, we have 4 projects underway right now in one form or another that are medical related, from an ophthalmologist office to a psychiatrist in a clinic and other projects that are medical related similar. But we have We know how to put doctors together, put their needs together, individually meet with them, and address their own specific needs, because they all have different needs depending on the specialists that they are. Yeah, it's a very tricky path to providing doctors what they need. They're very specific. And also how the public moves around, approaching the building, access to all the different suites, the parking, the importance of parking, on and on.
Thank you very much. Councilor Powell?
To Mr. Vacano, on your two sites, what is the square footage and what amount of square footage do you envision would go to physicians and doctors?
Well, on the Rest Acres Road site, again, it's phased into two phases. We envision 32,000 square feet on 2 floors as the first phase, and another 34,000 square feet on the second phase. We currently have negotiations ongoing with different, not quite medical related, but certainly community related tenants, and such as dentists, daycare, seniors, daycare, and on. The other site is a 6-acre site, and on that site we have approximately 20,000 square feet that we're planning. Again, that site, we have a little bit of retail on the front, and when we plan a retirement apartment residence for seniors.
Just if I might follow up, Mr. Vacano, could you elaborate a little more on I think you called it a senior citizens building, or?
Well, it's either seniors or a retirement residence, an apartment building suited for retired people and or seniors living. The difference is one provides the services such as dining, the other does not.
So it'd be like Queensview, basically?
Yes, yes.
Councillor Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if you were to build something like this and partner with the county and the health team, what is the going rate per square foot to lease such a facility?
Key in the door, turnkey for a physician's office. It runs a neighborhood of $22 to $24 a square foot.
And that's finished?
Finished, key in the door, exam rooms, millwork. The doctor just has to bring his stethoscope and his equipment.
Thank you.
Any other member of council? Question? If not, thank you for your presentation. Most interesting. Next is Paul Halleck and Peter Laveris of Cydia Group, Community Health Hub. Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
We're ready. Thank you very much, Mayor. We were here 2 weeks ago, yes, and we had asked to actually come and speak again. We've since had the pleasure, since that time, to meet with staff. We actually spoke with Mr. Emerson and Mr. Bradley, and we've taken the time as well to meet with the family health team and understand their needs. And we heard Mr. McDonald last meeting after we gave our presentation. And we've had a change of heart where we think we should be, and that is we're in full support of a community-owned community health hub. We heard that the doctors really want it to be a community-owned project, so they have our full support. The other thing, though, is Cydia, no different than in some of the other organizations, we also want to be a community player, and we're trying to work with the family health team. We're just letting you be aware of bridging some short-term needs depending on what happens with the Willet and the discussions with them. And so we think that we may have a short-term solution to assist with the family health team and the physicians. And again, we'll work with staff on those conversations. And again, but we wanted to bring that message just as a courtesy from our last presentation 2 weeks ago. So that's it in a nutshell, and happy to answer any questions. But again, our key message is we support a community-owned health hub. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions by members of council? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the delegation. So you would be prepared to work with the county and the health team, and would you have a site ready for August 1st for them to use in the interim?
Yes.
I believe I know which site that is, but I don't know if it's public information, so I'm not going to mention it, but feel free to if you want.
Well, we kind of shared it last time. We're working with the Energy Building, and a strategic player is Energy as well, and they have offices currently that they're not using, but we have an agreement with them. We actually own the property, and that we would work with the family health team on that. And in the larger scope of things, it actually supports the community vision of going across the street. I guess in the report on April the 5th that spoke to Curtis Ave being the long-term solution for the community health team. So, yes.
So you would use the former Brant County Power Energy Plus site?
The office is at the front.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Powell.
Through you, Mr. Halleck. On the one with the former Brant County Power Building, what square footage is available for you to be able to develop on that site?
Well, again, we're working through the family health team in identifying needs on that. So at this point, as we're going through the conversations and working even with our strategic partner Energy Plus, I'm not at liberty to say fully on that, but I could say that we think we can address all the needs.
Okay, and secondly, on the 3 sites you showed us, I think one had looked like a seniors.
Yes, we're still very interested on that. We didn't think that we needed to speak to that, but we're very interested in working across the street behind the Swiss Chalet/Harvey's property and bringing senior residents, no different than what was expressed tonight, senior residents/retirement residences in the future. So,
okay, thank you.
Any other member of council? If not, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Most interesting. And finally, we have Mike Maines of Remax Twin City, a proposal for family health team. Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
Good evening. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for allowing me to come in tonight. Thank you, Mr. Emerson and Heather, for getting me on so quickly. I do have working for some clients. They've asked to remain anonymous at the time. The 2 presentations prior were excellent. I'm understanding more of the needs of this family hub center. I believe we sent a letter to Mr. McDonald earlier. We do have 21,000 square feet available for August 1st with potential to expand. There's ample parking. The people that own it actually right now would sign a long-term lease at a very favorable rate with the potential to purchase it in the future. Ample parking, and it's located on a very main street in Paris, which I can't reveal at the present time, and they are willing to work with family health team right now. We do also have a design company that's working in there that could work with the family hub to have everything up and ready to go by August. So very premature stage here. I'm just hoping we get the blessing of council for my clients to maybe let us come back and make a formal proposal if they are so interested. But to answer the question, August 1st, it would be available. So that's pretty well it in a nutshell for now, but any questions, please feel free.
Thank you. Questions by members of council, if any? No questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Recorded. That completes page 1. However, we need now to return to the delegations to decide how we're dealing with them. First, it's an invitation, so we certainly acknowledge that and appreciate it. Number 2, we have requests from Ann Geary. How would you like to do with that? How would you like to do with that request at this time? Councillor Coleman? You wish this to be referred to that to deal with it at the same time? Noted. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Cardy? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Dr. Haley's presentation. Mr. Councillor Cardy, please.
Receive as information, Your Worship.
I think there were a number of questions in that presentation. Councillor Gatward, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. In addition to receiving it as information, there was a question about saving that building and still doing the fire hall and what we're planning on the same property. I don't know if there's room for both.
Are you seconding the motion? There is a motion been proposed.
No, it was already seconded, I believe, by Councillor Wheat.
Councillor Wheat,
so
thank you. It's moved and seconded. You're speaking to the motion.
I'm speaking to, you said
Thank
there
you.
was a number of questions, and I'm speaking to one of the questions that Dr. Haley asked about the property where the new fire hall is going to be built in Onondaga, and I believe her intent is to see if we could save the heritage building that's on that site. And I don't know if there's room to save it plus build the new fire hall, but I think it's worth looking at before we demolish it. Maybe we could sever it off and sell it and make a couple $100,000 or more. I don't know, but at least we can say we looked at it and there's not enough room to do both on that property, or there is enough room to do both. I don't know. I'm not sure how many acres are there. So that was just my suggestion to her question about that building.
Councillor Coleman.
General Manager Bradley does have the drawings here right now, and before we vote on this, we should look at it to see where the new hall is going to be located on that property, and that will answer the questions. It's right here. Dr. Goward has taken those drawings, so she should be well aware of where the situation of the hall will be. Asking your permission to have General Manager show that drawing right now, while we're in this discussion.
Is the drawing available?
Yes.
Please bring it forward. I will agree with that.
Thank you.
But we do have a motion on the table. By the way, for those of you that think the people at the head table aren't seeing what's shown on the screen, we have our private screen in front of us, so we keep up to date, mostly.
Your Worship, through you, this drawing, as well as the other three drawings, Community Services Committee, I think, has seen some early concepts. Community Services Committee will be seeing the final concepts at their next meeting, but this drawing is preliminary, but mostly final. It does show the existing property by this dotted line here. You can see this building right here where the arrow is the existing drive shed building where the fire hall is partially located, as well as the public works. It would be remaining. It's difficult to see, but the footprint of the existing building is just where I'm tracing here right now, approximately there. You can see it. It's very faintly outlined.
Thank you.
And you can see where the new fire hall would go. That's the customer, the bump out there would be the customer service office. And then you can see what the definition of the turnaround, these are pull-through bays. It's a requirement for our new fire halls to have pull-through bays. It's the safest way we can have our fire services personnel get their trucks in and out of the station efficiently, as well as parking area, which is over here to park the number of cars that would be required, the cistern and the septic bed. There's clearly not enough space. We did model this. We certainly looked at it on a number of ways. We moved this building. We do not feel that we can fit a new fire station meeting the needs of our fire services personnel on this existing site without removing the building. So we would either have to, and we do not believe there's enough land in between this property line
and the roadway to move it in this direction, we would have to basically acquire another 2-acre site from the farmland, the vacant farmland next door. That's an option. It's not one we're recommending at this time. We believe we have enough property on this site to do this with the demolition of the existing building.
Members of council? Councillor Miller?
Just to be clear, because I don't know, but my understanding is the Onondaga Town Hall, it's not a historic site or by any means, or...
Mr. Chair, through you, Your Worship, it's my understanding it is not a designated structure. It's on our list of properties of interest. It has not been designated. It's an 1874 schoolhouse or somewhere in there. And it was, as it was mentioned, it was converted into the town hall for the community in the 1970s.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, General Manager Bradley, for showing us this colored diagram and explaining where the footprint is. The diagrams I saw at the last meeting were black and white, and they weren't like this at all. So I appreciate you showing where everything is and explaining that there's not enough room. Thank you.
That's why it was allowed to council. Any other member? Councillor Wheat.
Just to reiterate, the heritage aspects of that building are being maintained. The bell cairn is staying right where it is. It's not moving.
Thank you.
We're trying to preserve as many trees on that site as we can. And the big cornerstone up at the top, the SS number 5, is going to be removed and incorporated into the new build. There will be a new customer service office there that is going to be much nicer than the customer service office that's there today. It will be a huge improvement to that community. And the entire, with one exception, every member of the Heritage Committee from the County of Brant attended that site that day to look at that building and see what could be preserved, plus 3 members of staff. I forgot Claire. There was 3 members of staff and another councillor, Councillor Coleman, well attended, and we had great input from everyone to preserve as much as we possibly can.
Any other member? This motion before council that the item be received for, is it received for information?
Yes.
Received for information. Discussion on the motion. Anything further? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. It's because there were a number of questions that should be answered and will be at a committee meeting or a public meeting, as you have said, Councillor Coleman. But that's not tonight. Councillor Miller.
I was going to move that presenters D, E, F, and G be received for written information and referred to the corporate development report coming forward later on.
Sorry, the motion is?
That they be received for information, presenters D, E, F, and G, and that that matter be referred to the corporate development report tonight.
Questions by members? You're seconding the motion? Councillors? Anyone wish to speak? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. That completes page 1. Wow. Item 5, adoption of minutes of previous meetings.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Coleman, that the County of Brant Council minutes of March 27th and the special meeting minutes of April 5th and April 9th, 2018 be approved.
Thank you. Any questions by members of council? None? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Business arising from the minutes. Any member have an item they wish to discuss at this point in time? None? Consent items to be received, 1 to 8. Consent items to be received, 1 to 12. Any member of council have any item they wish pulled? Councillor Chambers, please.
I just have the formal resolution to move what I saw that the consent items listed on the agenda 7B and 7C be received.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Members, any member wish an item? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Which takes us to committee reports already. Planning Advisory Committee. Councillor Powell, presenting.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Cardy, that the Planning Advisory Committee report of April 3rd, 2018 be approved, noting there are 2 items.
Questions of the presenter? None? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Community Services Committee.
Your Worship, it is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wheat that the Community Services Committee report of April 9th, 2018 be approved, noting that there are 6 items.
Questions of the chair? Councillor Miller.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to request that number 6 be pulled to be voted on separately.
Number 6 dealt with separately?
Please, thank you.
So we are dealing with the other recommendations, which 1, 2, 5. Any member wish to speak to one of those items? Councillor Gatward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 5, in the minutes, it said that this would be a temporary use, but it doesn't say temporary in the recommendation. So I wondered if it should say the Bucket Center to discuss options to permit the parking area to be opened temporarily.
Chair will respond.
I don't have a response for that.
Well, we need the question answered, though.
Very good.
Should
So
it
then
be
I will
there, or should
I will
it?
refer to staff if they have a response for us.
Who are you calling on?
General, Mr. Bradley.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what his title is right now.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Bradley. Your Worship, I mean, I believe that the recommendation is fine the way it's written, because we don't know the duration. First of all, we haven't actually finalized the lease with the church yet, but I do believe that the senior center is using the facility. So I think that you know, it's liable to last as long as the senior center's use of the church across the road. It could be many years. It could be a few years, depending on what happens with some other initiatives in the area. So, in terms of space for the senior center. So,
however, we know that temporary isn't a determinate time either. Do you wish to amend the motion, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Or not?
No, but if,
You do not wish to amend the motion?
No, but I was
concerned. We will
concerned.
deal with the motion presented then.
And my concern was that if the lease extended or the parking extended.
You wish to amend the motion?
No,
That's your alternative.
I've already said no, Mr. Mayor. I want to express my concern about liability in the wintertime, that's all. When there's,
in the wintertime?
When there's icy conditions and we have to plow that parking lot because we own it.
Temporary has nothing to do with the climate. Absolutely nothing.
No. Well, it does if they're going to move out by October.
It does not.
If they're going to move out by October, I'm not worried about snow plowing. That was my concern, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Cardy.
Just to assure Councillor Gatward that the church has been using that parking area for the last 35, 40, 50 years. Haven't had an issue. We have our own insurance. We do cover our own people that are using facilities in the area, so there's no worry.
Good to hear. Thank you.
So, recommendations 1 to 5 are covered in the motion on the table. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation number 6 is now before council. Councillor Miller.
A question, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes, sir.
The motion is that the funds remaining from the previously budgeted river access project. What I would like to know is how much did we originally budget, and how much is remaining? I wish that was in there somewhere, but it's not.
Mr. Chairman.
If I may, I stand to be corrected by Mr. Bradley. So I believe the original budgeted amount was somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000, and there's about $404,000 left.
Mr. Bradley, would you enlighten us, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think the original budget was about 430, and most of that is left. We didn't spend much. The consultant did a little bit of design work for us, and at that point, then we pulled back in the project because it wasn't coming together. So I don't have the exact number, but I think it's around that.
Question answered?
No, I appreciate that. 403,000, I believe, is correct.
Does the chairman's previous motion cover this item?
It'll be fine, yeah. Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Same motion. Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I had an interest in this item because I tried to get a tax reduction with this money, but it was referred back to Community Services, and in their wisdom, they have chosen to allocate it for these projects. Can anyone tell me what river access projects we might do in the future?
You have to address the chair. Questions go to the chair of the committee. So your question is?
Do you know what river access projects might be done in the future with some of this money?
In response to the question, Your Worship, I don't try to predict the future.
So there's no particular project in mind. I understand our trail improvements, our trails are well used, and I believe our staff allocate about $50,000 a year. So maybe we can reduce the budget with this fund if we don't seem to have any new capital projects to bring forward. I mean, as we know at budget time, Councillor Chambers said the best reserve fund is in the taxpayer's pocket, but this money will sit in the reserves, and I do say trails are well used, but I don't want this money to sit there for 10 years, so that's why I asked what river access project, and we don't know worthy county projects, what that is, but I'm sure that our staff will spend the money or suggest spending the money very wisely. Thank you.
Well, I think the chair will agree with me that if the money isn't spent, it remains in the budget. Councillor Wheat, please.
Yes, to help my fellow councillor, Councillor Gatward. River access is a problem today. It will be a problem tomorrow. It will be a problem next week, next month, and next year, as long as we have those two rivers. And if an opportunity presents itself to improve the access points that we have or construct a new one, we've got some money set aside to move forward with that project, because those river access problems are not going to go away.
Any member wish to speak? If not, everyone clear on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. When we will now rush on to Corporate Development Committee report.
Thank you, Your Worship. It is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wheat that the Corporate Development Committee report of April 9, 2018 be approved.
Questions of the chair. Councillor Miller.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask if we could pull number 11 to vote on separately.
Number 11 to be withdrawn from the report. That is again the last one. So we're dealing with recommendations 1 to 10. Members of council, anyone will speak to any of those? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation number 11.
Your Honor, I request a recorded vote.
Recorded vote when we get to it. Thank you. Who wishes to speak to this? Number 11. Who pulled it? Who pulled it from the report? Councillor Miller, your question.
Well, okay. I've asked this question twice now tonight, and I'm going to ask one more time. And maybe, if you'll indulge me, I could ask the CEO directly. But through you anyways, you make that decision. I want to know I've heard the same answer from the private sector and from the family health team. Why does it have to be a municipal build? Why does it got to be municipally owned? That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom.
You responded to the question, or will we have the CEO? Councillor Palma?
Well, through you, Your Worship, I won't speak for anyone else, but I believe that we have some distinct advantages as a municipally owned building that are not available to the private sector. And if I may use as an example, something as simple as our business park. Private companies have difficulty building business parks because of the cost involved and the losses sustained in developing things like that. And since this council does nothing else to bring in new physicians, I think this would be an excellent example on an item that could provide for the health and welfare of all of our people in a way that would be responsive to the needs and be able to work together in partnership with our healthcare team.
Did you feel that the motion covers council's wishes at this time?
Yes.
Councillor Carlick?
Thank you, Your Worship. And as a growing community that's going to have another 15,000 people in the next 3 to 5 years in this community, in the county of Brant, and we have an opportunity here as a community to support the people who look after us. And we need to have their back because they always have our back. And as it was said earlier, a community-owned facility allows us to do more than just have the doctors in there. For all we know, we could move staff areas into the building. We don't know. There's a lot of other things that we can do as a county to utilize this facility, but the most important thing here is that we show our doctors in our community that we support them. The cost of having a privately owned facility is a lot more than having a county-owned facility for the doctors. The square footage cost is enormous. We don't have to do that. So we really need to think about this as a council and decide, are we doing this for our own due diligence, or are we doing it for the county, the people in the county of Brant? And I'd like a recorded vote as well.
Councillor Powell?
As we've heard this evening, my understanding is the Health Hub never put out a request for proposals to this community.
The Health Hub.
Yes, based on what we heard tonight. Consequently, we've had 3 developers step forward and suggest what they could do. Now, depending which one, when we get all the details, it'll save the taxpayers a lot of money if the private people put the building up, lease it to doctors and other health interests. We've also heard from one that they've put up 6 of these medical type facilities, I gather in this area or outside. So we have a very experienced builder in the community, and we know the quality of work that he's done, such as the deaf-blind school. And the other one, we still need some more detail, but all the sites are in Paris. They will serve the whole community, and I think you get as much attraction when a private outfit puts something up to bring other health facilities in, because I think we'll see a quality job, and we'll see that where the expenses are going to be, where are the savings, and so I think it's in the interest of the community to really hear from all these developers, plus the county, and determine which is the way to go for the community and for the taxpayer.
Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And maybe I could ask through you, Mr. Mayor, to perhaps the CAO. It's my understanding, the way I read this resolution is it does not prevent or preclude partnerships of thinking out of the box type partnerships or regular partnerships or community partnerships of any fashion. It doesn't preclude that from happening. It does not preclude, and I need to be corrected if I'm misunderstanding, it does not preclude the municipality from working with a developer or one developer or two developers or wherever. Nothing is precluded. It just essentially moves the project forward with the municipality taking a leadership role in moving the process forward, the process being the development of a community health hub. Am I understanding that right? We're not closing any doors. The way I look at this is that we're opening doors and moving forward.
Thank you. Mr.
Allow me to respond here. Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, you recall maybe the previous reports that came through with this sort of a schedule and steps, and this is, as you indicated, the next step in a process. If this were approved tonight, the next step in the process would be to go to the potential tenants, the doctors, family health team, other related health practitioners, and so on, and try to get written commitment on their part, and then we'd further fine-tune the business plan and come back to you. So there's various checkpoints, and I believe there was a room in there for public consultation at that step too, when we've advanced it more. And
of course, there's different things.
Your Worship, confirming the question was about taxes or about revenues in general, or would you like me to address both?
Recoup how would we recoup our costs from a hub?
Sure. Certainly, Mr. Chair. The costs would be recouped through basically the rental payments that occupants of the building would pay to the landlord, in this case the county or its corporation. In terms of taxes, in the municipal-owned facility that's rented to a commercial tenant, the commercial tenant would pay taxes. They would be levied, they would be assessed by impact, levied by the county, and recovered from the tenants.
Thank you for the information. We have recommendation number 11 of the corporate, and we need, pardon?
Willem had his hand up.
Again, Councillor Bauma. Do you have a motion?
I thought you had a visual field defect, sorry. Yes, I had to respond to Councillor Powell. He keeps speaking about 3 developers who all want to do their own thing, and I have to say that only one of the developers wants to do the design build. The other 2 are quite happy with the county owning the project, and one was only speaking to finding temporary space for the physicians group. And so there's only one presenter who would like to do the design build and own the property themselves.
I beg for a motion from council to deal with recommendation number 11 of the corporate services report. Councillor Coleman.
Well, I'm speaking, Mr. Mayor, because I've had my hand up and you missed it.
Sorry about that. You may speak. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Anyhow, Mr. Mayor, referring back to what statement that Councilor Gabbard made about where will the tax dollars come from on this or whatever. I believe that this, and I'm supporting this resolution, but I think it will help future people coming into this community as potential tax dollars. They will come here, they will be driven here by because we have done something. So it will bring new development, new residents, and a lot of other things to the whole county of Brant, not includes East Brant.
Now, may we please, I'm going to
put the question.
I'm going to conclude debate on this. May we have a motion to deal with the subject? Because no doubt that motion moved and seconded. What's the motion?
That recommendation 11 be approved.
Approved. Who wishes to speak to that? Yes. Councillor Powell, you're speaking to the motion.
Yes. we talk about serving the people. One group of people we need to serve are our seniors. There is a shortage of space for seniors in our community and in the county. Now, we've heard from a couple of the developers at least, they will be including senior citizen homes like we have at Queens View or a modification of. So we're not only going to get a health hub, we're going to get accommodation for seniors, which is very hard to come by. It's been a slow deal to get it from the provincial government, and we do hear of some wanting to move the beds out. So this is a bonus, if you will, to help another segment of our community.
Councillor Carty.
As the chair, your worship, and Councillor Powell is right, and a lot of the developers in their plans, I understand, have been looking at putting up seniors housing regardless of this anyway. So to me, it's a moot point. Thank you.
Hope so. Thank you. You have a motion before that be approved. All in favor? You get a count? Thank you. Opposed? Motion is?
Motion's carried.
We'll rush on to public works. Oh. Public Works Committee report, please.
Thank you.
No.
10 recommendations.
I will speak to number 9, which has always been referred to in the presentation earlier by a delegation.
I gave you the wrong one.
Councillor Coleman wishes to speak to recommendation number 9. Pardon? Yes, I agree. Yes. You want me to clear them? Oh, I've got it. I'm good till midnight. You can't be seen eating it in public. Oh, our candidate left. Hey. Psst. Our candidate left. Too late. Councillor Coleman.
Mr. Mayor, I'll speak to number 9, and I will refer to it earlier in the delegation. Staff has looked at this intersection.
Thank you.
Give a recommendation. I'm feeling that the safest way right now is a no left turn off Mechanic Street onto Grand River. It makes the most sense right now. And if you look at number 10, or look in the minutes, is also referred to as to the master transportation plan for downtown Paris in the future. So it is covering everything. Things can change, but right now, temporary, this would give us 3 more parking spaces. And makes that corner safer. I looked at that corner coming down, and I come here, every night I come here to council or committee meetings, and I see it. I'm not sure how safe that would be, stopping right here at the bottom. I think it needs to be studied again, but I think the staff has looked at this, and I'm quite confident in our traffic analyzation of staff that they are confident with that report.
Councillor Carty.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with your report. I don't know, anybody who lives in this community would know coming down Barracks Hill or coming down Walker's Hill there at any time of the day between 7 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning until 9 o'clock after the schools are in, and then again in the evening, would know that putting a stop sign at the bottom of that hill would be suicide. It would be absolutely crazy to put a stop sign there. Coming around that bend, you would have pileups, but not only that, the traffic backup would be astronomical. It would be astronomical. So I agree with what Councillor Coleman has to say and what the committee's put together and staff, and I think they've done a great job on this. There is no easy solution. We know there's no easy solution. We have a great opportunity and not so great. The great opportunity is we have 2 rivers in the community. The bad opportunity is we have 2 rivers in the community. And without bridges or other ways of getting people across through town, we've got to do what we have to do as best. Thank you.
Councillor Powell.
The delegation came tonight with a revised plan of the three-way stop, the east side of Grand River Street. But again, it wipes out all the parking from the two restaurants there, Twin Pad, Jade's, plus about 5 or 6 other stores, and the taxi people.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people walk over to that taxi stand to get a ride to wherever they're going. And then to put another crosswalk in with, I think she called it a beacon solar light, and you would have one stop, and then you'd have a few feet, you'd have a second stop. So I think, as Councillor Carty said, it would really back everything up. And I'm all in favor of that left turn, no left turn onto Grand River, because we have it at 2 other places, Banfield and Alexander, and we've had no complaints or problems with those.
Any other member wish to speak? Questions of the chair? Councillor Chambers.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the chair, and he can speak for the committee. I wasn't part of the discussion. I'm just curious. There's another option, and that is status quo. Was that looked at? So the committee felt, with the advice of staff, that no left turn would be better than status quo, but not it's not worse than a three-way. Okay.
Thank you. Any other member? If not, we have the entire report before you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Canesville Community Center Ad Hoc Committee report.
Mr. Mayor, move on myself, second come together. Canesville Community Ad Hoc Committee report from April 11, 2018, knowing there is one recommendation. I'll speak to the recommendation, Mr. Mayor. This is just moving it on forward that when, if the land is acquired, and we will have an ad hoc, we will have that group will do and undertake a needs analysis. Study it, ask for community participation on it, and then bring it back to the group, or bring wherever it goes. It comes with this group, report directly to council.
Questions
covering all bases.
Questions of the chair by members of council. Councillor Miller.
Just to be clear, because we did have a presenter earlier, there will be public consultations, public input. I guess at this point, it'd probably be premature to say how many public input sessions we'd have and all that. It says, in response to questions M. Bradley reported, work would commence June 29th, 2018, following the land transaction. But that June 29th, 2018, that's just for the fire hall. That's not the Canesville Community Center, just to be clear.
That's for the land finalized, yes, for the fire hall.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Chambers.
I'm just going to speak in favor of the resolution, Mr. Mayor, particularly the second paragraph of the resolution, that the Canesville Community Center Ad Hoc Committee guide this process. It's my understanding and my recollection that the Canesville Community Center Ad Hoc Committee was established specifically for this purpose and would report directly to this council. And that's the chain of decision making. There's a little bit of confusion, and I think this clears it up. And the confusion is with regard to the Recreation Advisory Committee of Brantford, Onondaga, and Oakland. And the members of the Community Services Committee will recall a recommendation coming from the Recreation Advisory Committee, and I'm going to read that recommendation, that the Community Services Committee had to deal with. And that's this. It's moved by the Brantford, Oakland, Onondaga Recreation Advisory Committee. that staff be requested to prepare a justification report for the Canesville Community Hall, and that the report include information on previous usage, including types of functions and total number of rentals, potential uses, demographic profiles, and that the hall will serve, and that the input from the community has been received and how future input will be gathered. There's nothing wrong with that recommendation, other than it's a second group directing a committee that makes a recommendation to council, where we have a committee position to do just that. So it needs to be clarified, the roles and responsibilities with regard to the Canesville Ad Hoc Committee. Is the lead committee doing this, and we report or ask, etc. That's the process. So I hope one of the councilors is on both committees, and I hope that can be made clear so that we have a consistent decision-making chain of command where everybody understands where everybody is coming from.
Thank you. So you're referring to a recommendation? Yes. Cowboys. So do you see us proceeding now as presented, but making a difference in the future?
No, all I'm doing, Mr. Mayor, is reconfirming, supporting the recommendation. The ad hoc committee is the committee in charge of doing the investigation and the procedures that report to the council. It's not the Community Services Committee, and it's not a Recreational Advisory Committee through the Community Service Committee. That it just causes confusion. So we need to be going through the committee that was established for that purpose, which is the committee that has the report before us.
Should that be added to the motion regarding this?
No, it's in the motion that the second paragraph of that recommendation that Brian just read. That's how it should be.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Getler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I understand completely what Councillor Chambers has just said. And I want to explain that the reason the Brantford Oakland Onondaga Recreation Advisory Committee brought forward that recommendation is because there were several questions asked and no answers provided. And
were the
now,
questions asked?
Pardon?
Were the questions asked? You said that.
Yes, they were. And there was no answers, no follow-up. And at our last meeting, as you know, we got our answers and we got follow-up and a report from the Benton Group, and it's unfortunate that the report isn't here for the rest of the councillors to see, because it was an excellent report and addressed all of the concerns. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of council wish to speak on this matter? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Completes the reports. And we're over another page. Now, staff reports, and we have two new staff reports submitted to this agenda. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, does someone have those, copies of these?
Yep. Councillor Powell, I believe, has the first one.
Yes, the first one. Celebrate Ontario Grant Agreement with Noisemakers, Inc.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Carty, that the agreement between the County of Brant and presents is to ensure the requirements of the Celebrate Ontario Grant can be met and approved, and that the bylaw to authorize execution of the agreement be forwarded for consideration at the April 24th council.
And the agreement is Next. It's B, the agreement itself.
No, the agreement is attached in the bylaws.
In the bylaw, okay. Discussion by members of council, anyone? If not, all in favor? Opposed, carried. B, 5-year economic development strategy and action plan.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Chambers, that the County of Brant's request for proposals EDT RFP 1801 consultant services for a 5-year economic development strategy and action plan be awarded to McSweeney and Associates Consulting at the proposed price of $67,550, excluding HST.
Do you suppose there's a coffee out there? I'm dying. Discussion, questions by members of council. Are there any questions regarding this matter? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 10 information reports, none listed. Number 11, Steel Wheel Brewery. Requests for a council resolution of support of Manufacturers Limited liquor sales license, and this is a requirement of the LCBO. Oh, Councillor Wheat, thank you.
County of Brant supports the application of Steel Wheel Brewery for Manufacturers Limited liquor license.
Members council, anyone? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. B, Brantford Six Nations Impaired and Distracted Driving Committee requests for proclamation Impaired and Distracted Driving Awareness Week, which is October 22 to 28. Someone have this resolution? Councillor Gatward?
Yes, and it's April 22nd to the 28th, which is this week. And the proclamation reads, whereas impaired and distracted driving can result in injuries and deaths to motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists, and whereas the health and well-being of all citizens are a direct result of increased awareness about the dangers of impaired and distracted driving, and whereas 75% of fatalities on Ontario roads are caused by the Big Four, being distracted driving, impaired driving, aggressive driving, and seatbelt violations. And whereas impaired and distracted driving is a serious, life-threatening practice that is preventable, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of County of Brant proclaims April 22nd to April 29th as Impaired and Distracted Driving Awareness Week in the County of Brant.
Any question of the presenter? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. C, Brant County 4-H Association requests for contribution 2018 fundraising drive. And there is a note. Councillor Coleman.
We did, thank you, Mr. Mayor, do that in the budget presentation. So so it's already been done with. I think the left hand's not sure what the right hand's already done.
Receive, move it, be received, seconder, please. Councillor Cardy. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. D, City of Brantford. Request for appointment of representative to a new hospital for Brantford Working Group. Is this one before someone?
No, I'm not sure where you want to go with this.
Councillor Chambers, please.
I will move whoever wants to. Someone want to, I'll move that.
No, I know that Councillor Simons would like to sit and volunteer.
Moved and second, Councillor Simons. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Did you wish to speak?
Yes, I would. I was going to put...
Pardon?
I was going to nominate yourself, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. What's the matter?
It's all right.
What's the matter?
I want to make sure.
What's happened?
You are on it already?
Heather, didn't you get an email from Shirley?
Well, I'm on the committee, but what's it called? What's the committee
No,
called?
you're on one established by the Brant Community Healthcare System. This is a different committee. I think this is a committee that's coming out of a resolution.
To start thinking about a new.
Yeah. So you're not on this committee at the moment?
No, apparently not. Councillor Cardy. Yes, sir.
That was a very quickly done thing, and I apologize for that, Your Worship. I believe you should be on that committee as a leader of the community. As the leader of this community, you should be on that committee. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, if you want, I will move a reconsideration. I thought you were on that committee already.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, it's a different. This.
I'll move that we reconsider.
We have a motion. We voted on the motion. We voted on the motion.
Yeah, that's it, right. I'll move that we reconsider the previous motion.
Okay.
And second.
And seconder for that?
May I speak to the motion, Your Worship?
Councillor Cardy.
We'll just reconsider.
Okay.
And then you can.
Is that motion reconsideration? Have you got that?
Yep.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed?
Well, wait a second, this is really a close call. I need 6 in favor if this is going to pass.
And
So I
don't
need
you
everybody
have
to be-
6?
I don't know, I need everybody to be very clear with the
Can I
vote.
clarify something before?
Yes,
we move on?
Councillor.
I'm wondering, and I've overheard some discussion.
Yes, I have too.
discussion, that, you see, the city is appointing, they'll have a mayor and 2 councillors.
Yes.
And, and then there's a few other people, but then they say, if you read the resolution, it says, and representatives of Brant and Six Nations. I personally, reading this, can't see why the county of Brant couldn't appoint at least a mayor and at least 1 member of council.
Wow, thank you.
As opposed to just going with the 1. Because there are 3 from the city of Brantford on this. That's the way I read it, at any rate.
Councillor Chambers.
I think the motion to reconsider was passed by 2/3 because it was 6. So I will make a new resolution.
Yes, sir.
That the mayor and/or is designate all kinds of scenarios be nominated for the committee. And by and/or, that allows for, if
Yes.
allowable, for you to appoint someone else
Okay.
along with yourself. If you're not allowed to do that, then you are.
Thank you. So how do we deal with the previous motion?
So the previous motion was carried, and then there was a motion to reconsider, which was.
Yes,
I
and that was
carried.
approved?
I
Has that been
I
approved?
believe there was 6.
Pardon?
I-
Oh, you
No,
didn't
there-
get 6?
Yes.
You did get 6 members.
So I'm told there was 6. So then there's a new, so reconsideration brings it back onto the table.
Yes. And there are.
So Councillor Chambers is now passing a new resolution
Yes.
that the mayor and/or designate be appointed to the committee as the county's representatives.
Okay. Everyone heard? Any? Who wishes to speak? I think you have the answer. Councillor Gatward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as the CAO pointed out, it was representatives, plural.
Yes.
And
Correct.
I agree with that.
I do.
And I would rather see the motion be clear for the clerk and the community, and that you and Councillor Simons both be appointed, rather than the and/or designate.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers.
The reason I phrased the mayor and his designate, that survives elections. This isn't going to be a 6-month.
Oh, yes.
item.
Oh, for heaven's sakes,
So
yes.
that will carry on. And that doesn't preclude Councilor Simons or anybody else.
So that motion has been presented. We have it. Have we voted on it yet? We have vote to? Yes. Oh, just a moment. Councilor Gatward.
So, just so we're clear, we're in agreement then that we'll have 2 members.
If allowable, that resolution
Yes,
takes that.
which is the best. Right, okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll rush on now to item number 12. Questions? Councillor Powell.
During our budget discussions, we talked about having an in-house lawyer, and I am assuming it did not go through. My question is, looking at our April vouchers, there were a number of cases that our lawyer, the lawyer we brought in, looked at. My point was, could an in-house lawyer have done all of those? I think there's about 20 of them. Could he have done, or she, half of them or none of them? Reason I raised the question, on that one voucher page, it's over $100,000. So
yes,
is it something we could look at and see the savings that might be involved? And from a legal matter, can a municipal lawyer do all of those if that were the kind of lawyer we bought on staff? And if any special occasion comes up, then we could go out of house and for that 1, 2, whatever occasions, do as we have.
With council's approval, I'll request Mr. Emerson to respond to that.
I'll take the first stab, Your Worship, thank you. And then maybe others if they need to give more detail. But a solicitor's position was approved in the budget. And we're going through the recruitment for it right now. Okay. And as a matter of fact, we're just inquiring today with our Director of Human Resources, and it closes in a week's time. There's a lot of interest, and they're going to go through a recruitment process. So that's what's happening. Now, to answer your question, some of these things, and I don't have them in front of me, the vouchers you're talking about, possibly could have been handled by this. I know the business plan that Michael put together showed this position more than paying for itself by handling some of these more routine duties. Right. But as you indicated, there are specialized duties. For example, some of the more complex hearings in this room at the Ontario Municipal Board tend to be handled by a planning specialist, Nancy Smith, who we've been using recently, to deal with that. If it was a sort of a procedural OMB type of hearing, I'm sure our in-house lawyer could handle that. But if it's something more complex, that's where you go outside. And from time to time, the county will get different kinds of legal matters that require a specific expertise. So. Okay. But we are recruiting, and this position, if Michael's business plan's right, and I'm sure it is, will save us money.
Councillor Bauman.
I request your indulgence, Your Worship. I meant to be added under other business, and so we can wait till then, or I can comment now.
You meant to
be included under other business, the item that I wanted to go for.
Oh, other business rather than
yeah.
question.
So if I could be moved.
Oh,
to
I
there,
thought you said 12. My mistake.
No.
Okay.
I did, and my error.
Okay, that's fine. Granted. I'll just put you on the next page. And we're at number 13, resolutions. Grand River North Class Environmental Assessment. Staff report. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Brant. Move by Saul, second by Councillor Carter. Resolution 13, a resolution of Grand River Street North Class Environmental Assessment Extension of Scope. This was brought up at the community.
Yes,
Mr.
correct.
And last on High Road. And it said, whereas PT Engineering has proposed an extension of the project scope based on input received from the public at the community cafe event. And whereas there are some insufficient funds available in the approved budget, the additional funding of $99,000 will be allocated Watts Road, this will complete it in between. We need this to make it all work together, to make it flow through. If you're going to study one, you've got to study them all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cardy.
I would agree with Councillor Coleman. I think if you're going to have those cafes and listen to the people, if it's going to cost extra money, we spend the extra money. It's their tax dollars, they're wanting this, let's do it.
Councillor Powell.
I'm very opposed strongly to this. The night was advertised as looking at Grand River Street from Watts Pond Road to St. Patrick Street, which is the high school. Now, the meeting, unfortunately, the room was too small. People had to stand. We're at round tables filling stuff in. Very difficult to move from table to table. Now, I know there were some who spoke about the bottleneck downtown, which is true. There are quite a few. You can make a good case for the bridge across the Grand River. But at the conclusion, the consultant said, we'll put this all together and I'll come back in April and there will be a public meeting. Now, all of a sudden, the engineering outfit is skipped over that, as far as I know, and he's saying, well, give me more money, $99,000, and I'll carry the study down further to William Street. Now, the idea may be okay, but when he has his next public meeting, which I hope he does, why not introduce phase 2 as well as presenting what he thinks came out of phase 1? And then we would have had public discussion, debate, like that bottleneck. I know it's a big point too, but like we had no recorded votes, no show of hands, so it's just you're taking a group of people, which is good, and they throw a lot of ideas out there. But I think the key is the consulting outfit has to come back to the public, not to the staff, and explain what happened at the first one, and then introduce phase 2, if you want to call it that way, and people can again have an open discussion about what they think about phase 2.
Is that a question?
Yeah, when is the next
to the presenter?
engineering
No,
calling?
But this is what our system is, questions to the presenter.
Yeah.
Who's presenting this motion.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. Is there another planning for the public? Has it been settled or assigned or?
That's what we have to deal with.
I believe once this is initiated,
Yeah.
there will be another public meeting.
I hope so.
There is one.
Thank you.
Sir, through you, Your Worship, yes, certainly there will be another public meeting on the existing EA. The EAs are held to gather public input. It's council's responsibility to expand the scope of the EA. Staff are recommending to council that they do that based on input we heard from the public and dialogue with the consultant, so we can comprehensively plan Grand River Street North. Grand River Street, this portion of Grand River Street North will have to be addressed sometime. We're proposing that it be addressed now in anticipation of the growth that will happen in the north part of town as opposed to afterwards, which will be much more difficult.
The engineer also wanted some of that money to pay for the OMB hearing. We had agreed to 50-50, but we haven't agreed to give him more money to pay for his part of the OMB. That's, again, taxpayers' money.
Yes, correct. Councillor Cardy.
Well, I believe you have to be proactive in things, and I think this is called being proactive. You do your due diligence, you become proactive, you take the information your staff gives you, and as Mr. Bradley just said, it's up to us to make the decision to go forward, but we're representing the people. And yeah, it is more money, yes. but why go through the routine of, yep, we're going to have another public meeting, yes. Okay, they're going to want us to do that, blah, 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 blah. We have to be proactive in a sense of saying, we know this needs to be done. It's part of the process. The Class EA is exactly what it says. Instead of doing a section, do the full section. Then you have your homework done. You can take it to the people and say, this is what it is. So I think being proactive, I mean, I'm only speaking from the private sector. I don't know how it works that well in the public sector. I've been trying for years to figure that out, but that's what my thoughts anyways. Thank you.
Anyone, yes, anyone else? Well, just a moment. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If not, Councillor Paul. Do you want to speak? Councillor Gatward, I'll come back to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, at the Public Works meeting, I inquired of staff the section between William Street and St. Patrick Street that they wanted to extend the scope for, or extend the EA. I asked the question, is there room to expand for another lane of traffic? And the answer was no. And so then the next question was, well, what is this for? And staff said it's to look at the use of pavement. And the use of pavement between William and St. Patrick Street. And I felt that since we have a transportation engineer on staff, that he would be qualified to look at that and see what the use of that section of pavement could be in association with the big picture, which is being proposed to the northern part of Grand River Street. So that was my experience at Public Works and why I didn't support this. I understand it's for the big picture, but if that's all they're going to do is look at use of pavement for $100,000, I just thought our staff could do the work.
Is that a question? Can our staff do the work? Are you asking a question or making a statement?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mr. Mayor.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Very good question. And maybe Mr. Bradley could explain. Maybe our transportation engineer doesn't do that type of work. I'm not totally sure.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley to the front, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And so, yeah, we do have a transportation engineer. Our transportation engineer is a transportation modeling engineer. He does his kind of how traffic flows through the community. We don't have any design and engineer. We don't have any design engineers in house. This is design work, so we have to basically determine how we can maximize the use of that road corridor. And it's complicated work, and we don't have that in house. Someday we may. A lot of municipalities don't. Right. So the recommendation is to engage a consulting firm, as we often do, to do our design and construction planning work. So our proposal is to extend the EA, analyze the corridor. The EA may come back with a recommendation that you do need more land, that you just don't have enough road corridor there, and that's what the EA is for. It's to go through and fulsomely analyze the situation, make recommendations, shortlist them, and come up with a proposed solution. And we're proposing to do that for the current section of Grand River Street North that's being examined, and we're proposing to extend that right into the downtown area. So,
thank you, Mr. Bradley.
Councillor Powell.
We still haven't heard the results of the OMB hearing regarding the golf course and what they're going to do about the transportation on, I guess you'd call it Paris Links Road. Now, it was mentioned it has to be done, but there's no future date when that Grand River Street, or is it 2020, 2024, and I think it was Council Chambers mentioned earlier about the other end of Grand River Street. Maybe the final answer might be status quo.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment or speak? If not, there is a resolution before you. All in favor? Opposed?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you very much. So we're on to B now.
You're welcome.
Reconsideration of approval, noting 2/3 majority vote is required on this item. Oh, Councillor Wheat, please.
It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Carty, the request for reconsideration of approval of trees bylaw application for minor exception number 18-01.
Questions by members of council?
Well, I can't field
Councillor
questions
Cowler?
unless we reconsider.
Pardon? Oh.
I'm only looking for a reconsideration, then if
Right.
we get that, then I'll speak
That's
to it.
correct. That's correct. So we have a motion for reconsideration. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Now I can speak.
Yes.
I made a mistake when this came forward. Personally, I feel I made a mistake by approving this. And I've got some reasons why, in no particular order of importance.
Right.
First of all, this area includes a cold water stream, which is a natural breeding grounds for speckled trout and brook trout.
That's right.
It travels right through there, and I don't think, not to criticize our trees committee, but I don't think that was brought into consideration at the time. If you think back to about 3 years ago on this property, before collectively at this council we reorganized things and approved zoning bylaws before Committee of Adjustment would grant applications. And there was 4 lots approved by Committee of Adjustment at this location. And then it had to come forward to Planning Advisory where we denied the rezoning. The same individual then took us to the OMB because he didn't agree with the fact that we wouldn't rezone that land. We hired a lawyer, it was John Doherty from Gowlings, who defended us, and the county was victorious, so we did the right thing. Now also, that property, the individual there's Empire in St. George, there's Luzani, there's Riverview Highlands, and there's the Spielzak group. They're the landowners group that did the area study. This particular individual here has this property, didn't join the landowners group, didn't participate in the area study.
That's right.
Wants to go against us. I also look at what we just approved at planning 2 months ago, the bylaw amendment on how St. George is going to grow.
Oh, right.
And you all had that. We approved that planning bylaw amendment, or planning amendment, the OPA, here at council, the last council meeting a month ago. And we look at how we're going to grow. And this area really covers Riverview Highlands and Luzani. And we're going to need as many trees as we possibly can in that area because there's going to be a massive number of homes built over the next 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. We need to conserve as many of those trees as we can. And I'd like this council to reconsider and overturn this bylaw amendment and maintain as many trees as we possibly can, because we need to save them, because down the road we're going to wish they were there. Yeah, we don't like all that growth that's coming, but it's coming. And Luzani, Riverview Highlands are going to surround that area. And I personally feel that we made a mistake. We all make mistakes. My father told me a long time ago, if you don't want to make a mistake today, stay in bed. But once you get up, you're going to fumble the ball at some point in time today. And I take responsibility for that I let that get by me here when the trees conservation report came forward. And I think we need to overturn this and prevent that tree cutting in that area. Thank you.
No. Any questions by members of council? Councillor Chambers.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, the question that begs to be asked is, are the trees already cut or are they still standing?
No, they're still standing because I had to look into that, and I thank our clerk and our staff, our bylaw, Greg Bergeron, And Clayton Thompson, our forestry guy, they have not started cutting, so we can still do this. If they had started, we're in trouble, but they have not started.
Just, I'll speak to that particular decision. I'm not sure if you got the right tool in your toolbox to beat this hammer down. Notwithstanding what they've done in the past, the zoning that didn't go through, the land area studies not participating, we did account for the cold stream. We did account for the slope. We were very, very careful. Particularly with this one, because of the situation, because of the land around it, environmentally sensitive, and we followed very, very closely what Clayton had laid out, and he had been there a few times. So whether you agree with the decision or not, the fact of the matter is, I'm not sure that what you want, I'm not sure if the reasons you want to turn it over are, like I said, I'm not sure if it's the right tool in the toolbox, so I won't be supporting turning it over. I know we looked at all the information we had, and we made the best decision that we could.
If I can respond to that with all due respect, Councillor Miller, if you had really considered the cold water stream, I don't think you would have made that decision. If you had really considered the cold water stream for brook trout and speckled trout, that you wouldn't have made that decision. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I remember the statement being made at the meeting that we didn't want to cut trees too close to the creek. I specifically remember that. And there was made mention that there should be a proper entrance application made through Public Works to make sure that there was the least amount of trees cut as possible for the entrance and to protect the creek. So I remember that discussion.
But unfortunately, too close to the creek is not a definitive distance.
Well, I believe,
Everybody would have a different opinion.
and I believe that the GRCA would also have something to say about that.
The one comment, I forgot that. I mean, we approve tree cutting.
Yes, sir.
It does go through bylaw. Bylaw does follow up if they don't go by what the decision was. That is the tools we use to enforce the decisions we make. So just want to point that out.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want clarification on this. If we,
Yes.
since we are reconsidering this now.
Yes.
Reconsider it, will the applicant have to reapply again? 'Cause I don't have a problem if they can, we don't charge them for an application or whatever.
Oh, I see.
We apply and we get all the charges laid on the table. Because I'm trying to make a judgment decision that happened 6 months ago, roughly. And I do remember, and Councilor Garrett wasn't quite right, what I said.
Yes.
I said, before an entrance can be made, you would
Yes.
have to make an application to the county for an entrance permit.
Correct.
No trees would be cut anyhow, regardless. So I do remember we discussed in Clayton, and David is absolutely correct. Clayton did discuss about how far the trees could be cut near the stream.
But it needs a...
So I was just wondering, by re-ruling on this, does that mean the application will come back to Trees Committee? Or you're throwing it up completely? Because I got mixed feelings on this.
Yes.
I think the applicant does have a right to make the application. But I just want to make sure all the cards are laid on the table.
Well, one of the problems I have is the word that the applicant be encouraged to apply, which means nothing. If you request or require the applicant to do it, then it has meaning. But being encouraged is a little too easy. But that's what I feel about it. Anyway, where are we now? Any other speakers? And the motion is as presented. Pardon? Oh, the clerk. Yes, you may speak, clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you. So where we're at is we have approved a motion to reconsider, which brings it back on the table. We haven't overturned the decision to approve. We haven't killed it completely, but in talking to legal staff and all that today about this, I do believe that we need some kind of hearing process to allow the applicant to come back and make a further presentation and any other members of the public. But because it was done through a hearing process, I don't think we can completely overturn the decision.
I see.
We will send out notice that, you know, they can't move forward with their cutting, but I don't think we can completely overturn to say no cutting without going through another process of some sort.
So the resolution to deal with this matter should be using the wording that you've advised, those two steps.
Yeah, I would suggest.
Pardon? Or separate motion. Councillor Wheat.
I don't feel it needs a separate motion. I think the clerk was very clear that the applicant needs to be informed, and then there be an open meeting where the area residents, and particularly Luzani Riverview Highlands, be informed, and because they may want to present.
Yes.
That all interested parties have the opportunity at the next hearing when it comes forward, or hearing however you want to do it, whether it's here at council or at the Trees Committee, that everyone be given an opportunity to speak.
Correct. So how would you recommend that a new hearing be held, or a replacement hearing be held, or what?
It's my understanding the matter is still at the council table, so it'd be a council proceeding, but I would believe that maybe at the next meeting we should allow all the parties involved to have an opportunity to speak before we make a final disposition of that tree cutting application.
At the council meeting?
Yeah, well, that's where it is currently. I mean, it's currently a council decision that we're reconsidering.
Can't we refer it back to the...
Yeah, council may, yeah.
Refer it back to, is that what you had in mind? Refer it back to the committee to deal with?
Yeah.
A rehearing.
I'm hearing the clerk say that it is referred to the next council meeting. Oh, I can live with it if it goes to the Trees Committee, but I'm hearing that it comes to that it's a council decision.
Councillor Chambers, please.
What about a resolution to reconvene the Trees Hearing Committee?
Yes.
To discuss the application further?
Thank you. Is there, you're moving that?
If that would be in order, right? That the Trees Committee be asked to reconvene.
I think that's the answer.
To hear further input and continue deliberation.
With the consent of Councillor Chambers, I'd like to add to that all interested parties be informed of same meeting.
Yeah. And that's moved by Councillor, second by Councillor Coleman.
Yes.
Perhaps. Please.
Not interested parties, called adjoining landowners.
Ah, yes.
That's how it is.
Usually.
Go out to somebody that's 12 miles away.
Right, it's the people who are affected in the area.
Yep.
Moved and seconded. Are we agreed on this? Clerk, accept this?
Yeah.
Everyone? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we're over the page already. We're now to the next. And we're on item 14, other business, and the name that looms very large in my sight is Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you know, the next 44 days will be very busy for myself, and so I just wanted to publicly announce that I probably will not be able to make it to most of our meetings on the calendar until June 7th, but that I will remain available for constituency work.
It's a notice, so to speak. Thank you. Councillor Chambers.
I consulted extensively with staff, and it's 3 months before I need, or the council can deal with it if they want to.
So the question
is, will Councillor Collins be away for the 3 months, which is in municipal?
Ask me that on June 8th.
Oh, can be excused. We don't want the excuse now. Councillor Collins.
I look at the city of Brantford, and there was a chap there that was away for a while, and then in North Dumfries, Rod Rolleman, I believe it was Rod Rolleman that was away. The Air News might be able to help me on that.
Councillor Chambers, there's nothing wrong with being away if you're away for a certain extent of time. Yes. Like a municipal act, pretty close unless you have approval. So just cross that bridge when we come to it. The province keeps watch alive on municipal governments in most aspects. It appears, from my observation. Thank you for the notice report. And I believe we're at number 15, which is the camera. And I have that resolution with myself and some of our drive that we go and channel for all in favor? Opposed? The next item is the matter of bylaws. Oh, nothing. Pardon? Sorry, Your Worship, if I may. Oh, right. We'll deal with that now. 15A.
It is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wheat. And if you don't have, just the, it's the Lasani agreement from the in-camera with the little bit at the end, and that this authorizing bylaw be brought forward and added to the list of bylaws to be considered at the April 24th, 2018 council meeting. And Heather's on that. Very good. I'd be pleased to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions? Your speed reading? Thank you.
While everyone's reading, I'll just ramble on. Hats off to Michael's group for making this reality. I can't say enough good things about what a fantastic plus this will be for the community.
Councillor Miller.
We were talking about the peninsula, correct?
Yes.
There's just a little bit on the third page. Not the end of the peninsula. The north peninsula, the net.
Your question is?
Just clarify the spelling of net.
Frank.
There's an I in there, so.
Friendly amendment to the bylaw.
Did you wish to ask a question, Your Worship? Any questions? No questions? Councillor Miller, are you?
Actually, it's a little confusing. I'm okay.
No questions, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And now we have bylaw
First reading of bylaws, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Second reading of the bylaws 4318 to 5718, Your Worship.
Second reading of bylaws as listed, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any member of council have any bylaws they wish to question or call for vote? None? Proceed.
Thank you, Your Worship. Third and final reading of the bylaws 4318 to 5718, Your Worship.
Third and final reading bylaws as listed. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now, we are invited to proposed council education session and the May 22nd regular meeting of council. So we accepting that.